I do have to do one caveat here, and that is on this webinar, we deal with some very adult, real stuff. And I do not know what kind of issues each of the members watching are dealing with yourselves. I don't know what kind of past history you have, what kind of specific events you have. I don't know what kind of traumas you have, and so on. So you must always take care of yourself. This is done, voluntarily for the benefit of everybody. If some of it gets too intense for you, stop it. And come back to the recording later on where you can stop and start and stop and start and so on. So anyway, please take care of yourself. Nor can anybody else on this, Sherry Baker, Gabrielle Rutten, Catherine Neris, or anybody else who would be on this webinar can take responsibility for you. You have to do that yourself. Okay. Now, with that in mind, I think, just a minute, let me look at something here. I see Catherine has raised her hand. Sherry, you don't need to raise your hand, but Gabrielle Rutten, would you please raise your hand for me for a moment? Yeah, there you are. For the moment, I want to speak with Gabrielle to begin with. So let me unmute you, Gabrielle. Are you there?
Yes, Gary, I'm here. Well, good morning, everybody.
And Taco is there with you, right?
He is.
Hi.
Hi, Taco. Hi. Okay. Hold on a second here. Let me get some other. Okay. All right. Now, I asked Catherine. See, you and I, Gabrielle, have worked independently with Catherine on her various issues. And I spoke with Catherine yesterday, and she said it was fine with me before she comes on if you and I go over a little bit of the history here, if we can, so that she doesn't have to, and everybody is familiar with these kind of things from a perspective. So I've dealt with her on her specific events, many of them, in the past. You've done so independent. You've done more than I have, okay? Tell me, how long have you been working with Catherine?
Yes, we had to figure it out yesterday, Catherine and I, but we started working together in 2009.
Oh, it's been a while. Okay.
It has been a while, yes.
So, and you've done, I understand, many specific events.
Yes, indeed. And we started obviously with gold standard EFT. So we've done the personal peace procedure, and we've done many, many, many specific events. We did, okay. Yes.
And in my experience, when I have done this, I've only done it for maybe 2 years, okay? But the times when I have done it and we've had specific events, those specific events, and we're using optimal EFT when I'm doing it, rather than the tapping, those specific events seem to have, at least for the moment, collapsed. Was that your experience?
Yes, that was my experience also. Although I must say that there is such a repetition in what happened with Catherine that my guess is that more specific events should be dealt with.
Well, there are a lot of them.
Correct.
And they tend to be involved with abuses by her parents.
Yes.
Largely sexual abuse, but emotional abuse, etc.
Correct. That is correct.
I don't know that we need to go into the detailed specifics of all these sexual events. But the thing I want to ask you about is that it seems to me, even though we get the specific events done, and even though those specific events don't seem to bother her after we do them, and we may have to go back and do it a time or two later, okay, because as we're testing, okay, but even though we seem to have some success along those lines, there's still an underlying thing that doesn't get touched very well, and that generally labels to me shame, guilt, and stuff that has been embedded in her from her childhood. Yes?
Yes. No? Yes. I agree there, because this abuse happened to her from birth until about 5 years old. So her very first 5 years in life, were extremely stressful and extremely unsafe, and it continuously happened. So, and I mean, the details are different for everybody, but if you're abused, the perpetrators tend to point their finger at you. You're at fault. It's your mistake. You are asking for this. And this has happened so many times when she was relatively young. I mean, not relatively young. Yes, she was very young, because it happened from birth till the age of 5. That it's totally ingrained in her that it is a very shameful thing and that it's her fault. So there's guilt involved. And yes, I agree with you.
Well, she's been told by her parents, who are authority figures for a young child. They are the embodiment of the truth, to a young child, that she is a liar, she is worthless, she is a whore, all of this stuff.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
more. And more.
And many, many, many times. I mean, almost on a daily basis.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, and Sherry, by the way, you are. Say hello, Sherry. Would you? So I'll make sure you're ready to come on here. Are you there, Sherry?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right.
Hi.
All right. Now, Sherry has not worked with Catherine. Gabrielle and I have. But I wanted Sherry to be on here as well. Sherry comes at this from a decidedly very, very spiritual perspective. As I've told you before, she's my spiritual mentor. I come at this from all these perspectives, but largely from the engineer, science, kind of quantum physics kind of guy, okay? And Gabrielle then can, of course, come in here from the medical point of view. So we have 3 different things going on here. Now, one of the things I want to interject here, and I'd like to get both Sherry's and Gabrielle's comment on this, and this is an overview thing, not just for Catherine. It's an overview thing for everyone, okay? What we've been doing in these webinars and in this whole course membership to date is we've been aiming at specific events. We aim at specific events. We start to get the angers, the griefs, the guilts, the traumas, etc., that tend to keep us glued to this separate state. We tend to chip away at them so we can start seeing things in a more oneness way, more oneness way, more oneness way, okay? Underneath all of that is the big one, if you will, is the major thing that we're trying to get beyond, and that is to get to the point where we see beyond our separateness and enter into oneness. Now, we're doing that a bit at a time, but today we're going to take a much bigger step in that regard. And I'm going to generally label it the ability to receive love. Now, that may seem, gee, Gary, why would you want to bring up a subject like receive? Everybody wants to receive love. In fact, if you think about it, are we not pursuing love just almost all the time? I mean, we really want that special someone in our life, our soulmate, so to speak. We seek compliments, we seek adulation, we seek applause, we seek all kinds of different things, all in the name of love. Yes, Sherry?
Yes, Gary, we are pursuing love, but we're pursuing it outside of ourselves. We're looking for it out there somewhere, in another person, in a job, in a big house. Love is within us, and so it's really not a big pursuit if we would just look where it truly is.
Well, yes, and what I'd like to then shift towards is the fact that we actually have a very difficult time, even though we are seeking it, we have a very difficult time receiving it. Example, we're all familiar with the term unconditional love. You just emanate love, you give love, you receive love, you just do that. But let me talk about the giving part of it for the moment. To give unconditional love, we tend not to do it. There tends to be, interestingly enough, this is what I want you to comment on, Sherry, a fear about that. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. We are afraid to receive love because that's who we are. And if I were to receive love and recognize our oneness, then I lose my separateness. I lose my quote unquote self, or at least I think I do. And it's a little scary for me to think that I might get lost in this big ocean of oneness, of love. And so we don't receive it very well because we're afraid of it.
Yeah, and in the separated world, this unconditional love, if we really gave it out, hold on a minute. These things make all kinds of noise. Okay, where was I, Sherry?
Well, if we receive it, you were talking about what might happen in this world of separateness.
Okay, if we put out, I'm going to get on the giving side for the moment. If we put out unconditional love, it's not really, if we think about it, unconditional. We may love our pet, we may love our spouse or our children, we love, okay? But it often comes with a price. I will love you, but I'm expecting something in return. You need to love me back, okay? And so that's not unconditional. Now, it's sort of, we don't think about it that way a lot and so on and so forth, but unconditional, completely unconditional, And the other thing is, if somebody comes up to you, and I'm asking the whole audience now, and looks you right in the eye with loving eyes and says to you, "Oh, I love you so much," what do you do with that? Do you really receive that? Do you let that soak in? Do you kind of avert your eyes? Do you feel some obligation? I mean, what goes on if somebody really does that, okay? And so what Sherry's talking about, and I want to spend some time on today, is this built-in resistance to the very thing we think we pursue, okay? And that's love in the absolute sense. Now, Sherry's talking about it sort of diluting our sense of separateness. Separateness is what I was trying to say. Somehow or other, if we really get into that oneness, if we really let go and really accept all of this, that is, we think, at the price of giving up our separateness. Now, in one sense, that's true, okay? But does that mean that in order for you to work with the unseen therapist and to work with optimal EFT, you have to all of a sudden give up your sense of separateness and your body and everything else, and all of a sudden roll up into a ball of light and split? No, we're doing this piece by piece. It's there's a comfort level we've got to get to, and it's different for different people, okay? So this is not a contest. A lot of people are just wondering about, gee, am I doing it as well as somebody else and this kind of thing, So Sherry, comment on that. Did I say it well? And Gabrielle, you too, if you have a comment.
Yes, we're so afraid that we're going to lose everything. And people often say, I don't want to release all of my fears because then I'll disappear into this cosmic soup of oneness and I'll lose my friends and my relatives and myself. In truth, you're not going to lose anything. You're going to gain everything.
And those are nice words. Those are nice words, okay? But we don't really trust that yet until we have had more experiences along the way, and that's what we're about here.
Correct.
Okay.
My feeling is if we have a fear that we're going to lose everything by embracing love more fully, then we're not that close. And we don't really need to worry about it.
Well, we're going to get to this point about receiving love, which is a part of what we're talking about with Catherine here in time. But Gabrielle, did you have any comments on this?
Well, maybe I would like to add that talking about it this way, you need consciousness and be aware of yourself. And I just want to point out that when you're very small, like a little baby, you are so dependent on your caregivers that this is the first way to learn that you are loved and that you feel safe and that you can safely develop and learn how to be whoever you want to be. And that is also very compromised when you're very small and there's a lot of abuse going on. And I think it is safe to say that Catherine's parents were not able to show her unconditional love. So she hasn't experienced that from a very young age on. She doesn't know what it is to be safe and to be unconditionally loved as a small child. And that adds to the problem, I think.
Yeah. In fact, she's gotten just the opposite of that.
Correct.
Her upbringing was danger.
Yes.
I mean, that's
very dangerous and very unsafe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so as a result, we go through life. Now part of the history here, and I'm going to bring Catherine on here in a moment. But part of the history here is that Catherine didn't have her paralysis until, I forgot the exact age, around the 20s. Am I correct on that?
Yes. Around 2001, the symptoms started that we now call MS.
Okay.
Yes.
As an aside, you as a physician question whether it's really MS, correct?
Yes, but you know me, I question all diagnoses. So.
Well, I know, but you were talking. See, she has had from time to time spasms, which means the muscles contract and things like that, and that is suggestive to you that it's not really MS.
Well, no, because people with MS can have spasms. I just point out that if your muscles are still able to contract, they are strong enough for you to stand up and walk again, because they are strong, these muscles, because the spasms are big. I just believe that it's mind over matter, and I don't care what diagnosis doctors give, if they call it MS or what kind of paralysis it is. I think this paralysis is the result of the extreme stress she has had.
Yeah. I asked her, I'm going to bring you on in a minute, Catherine, but I asked her maybe 2 weeks ago. I said, Catherine, if we are causing our own ailments, our own paralysis, for example, why did you choose to do it from the neck down? I mean, you hear fine, you see, you talk, all the stuff from the neck up seems to work, but from the neck down, no. And matter of fact, I think what I will do is I will ask that question of Catherine directly. But let me just one moment before I bring you on, Catherine, and unmute you. One of the things that I promised Catherine here, and it's just simply true, that there is no need for anybody here, including Catherine, to perform. Okay, it's like, oh, gee, I'm going to be a guest on this, and I've got disabilities, and if it all works, I'll be able to, get out of my wheelchair and skip rope and and things like that. And it's got to work, and if it doesn't work, I'm a failure as a client and a guest and all that. None of that is true. This has got nothing to do with performance. It has a lot to do with gratitude and receiving love. Okay, that's what it's really about. This is an opportunity for you, Catherine, as well as us, and there are no expectations. Everybody in this audience will be joining me in the exercises, regarding love that are deeper than we've done before, receiving love, etc. And everybody on this call is going to have varying degrees of success. It's not a contest. Did you do it better than I do it? Okay, it's just not there. Everybody proceeds at their own level, at their own pace, and so on. So with that in mind, Catherine, I'm going to unmute you just a minute. You are unmuted. Say something.
Hi, Gary.
Are you there? There you are. All right.
Here I am.
You wrote to me this morning, and I want to know if this is still true. You said it was almost creepy how calm you were feeling about this. Is this is this still true?
Absolutely not. That was a lie.
Okay. Well, when you wrote it, were you feeling calm?
Yes, I was feeling calm when I wrote it.
Okay.
It wasn't a lie, but it would be a lie if I told it right now.
Okay. All right. Well, on a scale of 0 to 10, how nervous are you?
8.
You're an
8.
8. Okay. One of the symptoms that you have, by the way, is that you are perpetually cold. And so you wear blankets around you all the time, correct?
Indeed.
And you're wearing the blankets now?
No, you can see it. That I'm
Well,
not.
it's what you're wearing is very black. Is that a coat?
No, that's one blanket, but you forbade me to have more, so.
No, I didn't. I said because your face was all covered up like this, and I said, no, we have to see your face.
But of course, that's part of my problem. If I could, I would wear a burqa.
Okay. All right. So, Gabrielle and I, with your permission, have talked about you.
Mm-hmm.
Did we say anything inaccurately?
Completely right, I think.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Now, as Gabrielle and I were talking, we were speaking about some specific events that we had done with you. A lot of them had to do with sexual abuse and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the comment that those specific events seem to be, at least those events themselves, we seem to make some good progress with that. Now, I wasn't there for all of those. Would you say that's partly true, 100% true? What?
I think it's completely true.
Okay. So the events themselves, you can go back to them and they don't seem to bother you.
Yes, right.
All right. However, what I want to get to about that is, as a result of that, there have been some improvements in your life. Not necessarily physically, but there have been other improvements. The mere fact that you would show up here is one of them.
Indeed.
Okay. What other improvements can you recall?
On the level of my physical symptoms?
No, just in general.
In general, I'm more calm. I get triggered less, a lot less.
Go ahead.
I don't know what else.
Well, my understanding is that your mother comes to see you. You Skype with her with some frequency. She comes to see you every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And before we ever done any of this, you had great resistance to her showing up, correct?
Yes, indeed.
And how is it now?
It's a lot better. I don't have resistance anymore, except when she touches me. I find that hard. And I feel more peaceful in her presence. I even try to love her, so.
Okay.
That's an improvement.
All right. And you also had, and this would be to the envy of many people listening in, okay? You've had what you call a golden bubble. You wrote about this, and I sent it out to everybody. A golden bubble spiritual type experience.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, right?
Yes,
okay.
Very recently.
Within the last month, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, there are many people listening in who have not had that, okay? Now, can you describe for us what that was like?
It was very peaceful. It made me very quiet and grateful. And it gave me a sense of an inner power. Even though I'm stuck in this wheelchair, I feel strong.
Strong in what way?
On the inside, an inner strength.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, if I recall our recent conversations correctly, and you correct me if I'm wrong, there was, as a result of that spiritual experience, which, by the way, has faded for you now. You haven't gotten back to it since, okay? But it's faded for you. As a result of that, these spasms that you would feel when you were being bathed and things like that were much less. They went from like being really intense 10s to more like 3s, at least for a while. Is that correct?
Completely correct.
Okay. So here we have at least one clue about some physical improvements as a result of working with the unseen therapist.
Yes.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's...
No, it's true.
Okay. All right.
Very clearly so.
Okay. Now, a week or two ago, you and I did an experiment. And I want to repeat that experiment here. And then we're going to start moving into things where the audience and you and everybody can generate receiving love and so on. But I asked you about receiving love. And you talked about some resistances you may have in the ultimate sense, and like I talked about earlier. And then I asked you to do something, and you know what it is. I'm going to ask you again to do this, okay? And it doesn't have to work this time. Just whatever happens, happens, okay? So the idea is for you to receive love from me. Now, I happen to be somebody that would be, in general, difficult for you to receive love from because I am male, correct?
True.
Oh, and I want to go back a second. I want to go, before we get to that, something important. When I asked you this question that I talked about earlier, is that if you have caused your own ailment, as we're talking about, your own paralysis, why did you do it from here down? What did you tell me?
My answer would be that it's very convenient for a nun not to feel anything from the chin down, because I don't want to have problems with my sexuality, and all the threats and fears would be gone then.
Oh, okay. So if your body were to work, then you would be able to express yourself sexually.
For instance, yes.
And as a nun, that would be
A problem.
That would be a problem. So you've made some vows along these lines and so on. And so given your own abusive sexual background, I don't want to say this, I want you to say it. However you mean that for you. So if you were to express yourself, if your body was able to express yourself sexually, and that would be a problem as a nun, what would be the problem with that? It's like you would be attacking somebody else? You would be doing something against your own values? What?
You mean as a nun?
As Catherine, nun or otherwise?
Well, as a nun, I'm not supposed to have sex. So that's clear, but as Catherine, I would say it would be a problem because I'm so confused about my sexuality. I can't understand that I would have a sexual feeling whatsoever.
And is that because of your abusive upbringing or
Yes.
the vows?
Because of the abuse.
Okay. Describe more to me, if you can, about that. What is confusing about that?
I was abused by both parents, so how could it be that I would be attracted to either a male or a female?
Okay. All right. So that ends up being a confusion for you.
For me, yes.
And while we don't know it for sure, that is a pointer to a possibility as to why you would prefer to have a body, a benefit, let's say, of having a body that does not work from the neck down.
Indeed.
All right. Now let me ask you, and I do this a lot, and you've probably heard me do it, Catherine. Logically, if your body was able to work from the neck down, and you were able to express yourself sexually, logically, would that be a problem?
It wouldn't, no.
Okay. So I conclude from that the problem here is an emotional problem, not necessarily a logical one.
Yes.
Okay. There are many, many nuns in this world who do not have the paralysis from the neck down. And whether they're supposed to or not, they do have sexual feelings. I gather you would agree with that?
I do, completely.
Okay. So you have models of people that can have a body that works down, have sexual feelings, and still comply with their vows.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now I want to get to this exercise that we were doing, okay? And the exercise was that I would have you close your eyes. In fact, do that now if you would. And the rest of the audience, if you wish to do it, please do it. It would be sort of a beginning exercise in this receiving love thing that we're going to launch into now, okay? So Catherine, close your eyes and take a nice breath, because we're going to just be a little relaxed. I know there's lots of things going on. You're still a little nervous and all of that. You probably got some chatter going on, but just let it be to the extent you can. Just relax, enter a loving moment. I know the nuns that work with you sometimes give you hugs, and that feels good. You can imagine that, or anything else. Just kind of get into that. And now if you would imagine me showing up right there in your room as a male, but not with any kind of sexual intent. I am your friend. And I sit down next to you and I grab your hand and I hold it in both of mine as you and I talk just about life, people, gentle things. And I, in a caressing and loving way, not sexual way, massage your hand, and I run my fingertips up and down your arm in a sort of a gentle, caressing manner, a manner that says, I love you without the words. Just let that happen. And then with my fingertips, I sort of run them through your hair, saying I love you. It's got nothing to do with sex. It's an I love you thing. Okay. Now just immerse yourself in that for a few moments. I'll give you a little silence, and then I'm going to ask you a question when we're done. So go ahead. Okay, Catherine, if you would open your eyes and just, the only answer we need is what actually happened, okay? Were you able to receive that? 100%? 1%? Nothing? 50%? What?
I think 100%.
Okay, so you were able to let go of all of that. And I'm a male, okay? You also said it was okay for me to say, so I'm going to say this here for this purposes. It's not just that I would be a male and intimidating to you. Your own sexual preferences is female, okay? So if I was a female and a female was touching you in some fashion, what might be your response to that?
In the same way you touched me now.
Yes.
No problem.
You could separate a sexual overture from the I love you form of touch.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's it. That is a beginning. Okay. Now, here's what I'd like to do with both you, Catherine, and the whole audience for the rest of this time. And this is going to be our main experience for everybody. And we all owe you, Catherine, by the way, a great deal of gratitude for appearing here and allowing us to do this. And I want to ask you a question. On a scale of 0 to 10, your nervousness, is it still an 8?
Maybe a 4.
Maybe a 4. Okay, well, it's come down some. Yes?
Yes, it has.
Okay, all right. So we're going to start off doing something that we've done in previous webinars, and then we're going to build on that and so on. And so what I'm going to do is have both you, Catherine, and everybody else do this exercise we did before, where we close our eyes, get in a loving moment, and then try to expand that love. We double it, triple it, quadruple it, this kind of thing, okay? And we're going to do that because we want to get to the sense of getting to the highest loving state that we can individually. Different people will have different levels of this, and that's fine, okay? We're going to get to the highest state we can individually, and then when we get to the receiving love or the larger piece of this, we'll be better prepared. So I know, Catherine, you cannot tap on yourself, but you can do it mentally. So I'm going to have everybody here tap with me, because we're going to do a little tapping to get you quiet first. Okay, so tap with me. Even though I may have some difficulty getting quiet, I deeply and completely accept myself. Top of the head, difficulty getting quiet. Eyebrow points, difficulty getting quiet. Side of the eye, difficulty getting quiet. Under the eyes, difficulty getting quiet. Under the nose, difficulty getting quiet. Chin point, difficulty getting quiet. Collarbone points, difficulty getting quiet. Under the arm, difficulty getting quiet. And we're going to do one more round just for good measure here. Karate chop spot. Even though I may still have some difficulty getting quiet, I deeply and completely accept myself. Top of the head, remaining quiet, difficulty. Eyebrows, remaining quiet, difficulty. Side of eye, remaining quiet, difficulty. Under eye, remaining quiet, difficulty. Under nose, remaining quiet, difficulty. Chin point, remaining quiet, difficulty. Collarbone points, remaining quiet, difficulty. And then under the arm, remaining quiet, difficulty. All right, now if everyone would kindly close your eyes and enter this loving moment that you're probably used to by now. And just notice it, dwell in it for a bit. And now we want to take that sense of love and we want to expand it, double it. But notice something very important. If you have difficulty doubling it or tripling it, we'll go to triple here as well. Just notice what kind of barriers come up. Oh, did your list of things to do all of a sudden show up? Did your irritation with somebody, your neighbor next door, show up? A chore at your workplace show up? Distractions like that? That's okay. Let them be. We'll spend a little while doing that, but notice the barriers if they are any. Go ahead, double and triple. I'll give you some time. Okay, whether or not you noticed any barriers, we're going to do a version of this yet again. If you noticed barriers, this time we're going to bring an unseen therapist to help you remove those barriers or dilute those barriers so you can expand still further. So this time the goal is to continue to expand, But bring in unseen therapists if you have barriers, and you're likely to have them. I don't care how much you expand, there's always going to be a barrier someplace, most likely. Okay. Allow unseen therapists to come in, take care of the barrier and keep expanding, take care of the barrier, keep expanding, take care of the barrier, keep expanding. I'm going to give us 2 minutes for this one. In fact, I'll even time it. So go ahead. Okay. Now, hopefully, you've been able to expand it at least somewhat. And again, it's not a contest. You did not fail if you didn't get into some magnificent, ball of light type thing. You did what you could do. You can come back and do this exercise again and again and again. Practice. That's what moves you up to our stairway to miracles. Okay. Now I want to do something else. It's a little bit preparatory for the larger thing we're going to do. We're still going to work on ourselves individually. We're still going to try to expand our love, but we're going to do it somewhat differently, okay? So close the eyes and spend a moment, getting into that loving moment. I'll give you a second here. And now shift your understanding to something about this experience of love that we're having, and do so in a way that lets you know that true love has little or nothing to do with the body. Okay. The body, if you think about it, is a form of limits. So do this in your imagination. There's a zipper that starts at the top of your head and goes down to your toes. Unzip it. You just now unzipped your body, and what's inside is the real you, the spiritual you, the you that doesn't have to carry a body around. Just the you. Okay? It's nothing but light. It's nothing but love. It has no attitudes. It has no pains. There's nothing there to get angry at because it's just, you're without the body. The body is what, in the sense of competition it has with other bodies, is what ends up causing all of our griefs, guilts, angers, etc. Okay, but if it's just the essence of you, unzipped, that's a little different. So to the extent your imagination will allow you, and you could ask unseen therapists to help with that imagination, imagine floating outside the body. Let the body just lay on the floor someplace. Those are your limits. And now there you are, unlimited, without this body, floating around, not even subject to gravity. You're floating around. You are free. Important word here. You are free. There is no judgment here. There's no contest. There's none of that. You're just free. And now with that freedom, see if you can't make your light ball bigger. Expand it. I'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, let me just interject one thing here. It would be nice if I could just stop what we're doing and start asking everybody in the audience, gee, how are you doing with this, and get feedback. That would interrupt the flow of all of this. Unfortunately, I cannot do both. I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that at the very end of this, okay? And you can always, of course, give me feedback and write to me and so on. And you can go back and see this recording. So my guess is, from the audience, you've had varying degrees of success with this. Some maybe pretty big, and some hardly got off the ground floor. All of that's okay. It's your level of practice at this point. Okay. Now, with that being said, I would now want to turn to a larger experience using what we've done so far, or launching off of that, with Catherine. And again, this is going to take a little while, this one. And it's going to be fun, and there's a little fantasy in it, okay? So get in a I'm going to enjoy this mode, okay? Because there is fun here, okay? You get to be a child again, in one sense here. So everyone, including Catherine, please close your eyes. And imagine a grand ballroom. And nobody's in it at the moment, but it's a place where we're all going to gather. Some of you may want to call this the golden bubble that we have described in earlier times, but for the moment, I'm going to call it a grand ballroom. And the grand ballroom has as its first entrant, a very special guest, whose name is Catherine. And Catherine is wheeled up to the opening, the doorway, and she got all dressed up for this, you know, got her wheelchair all shiny, and got her hair all done, and all of this, and she's fit to the nines, and she's going to show up and be the center of attention, and all of this. And she gets to the door, and they say to her, "Sorry, Catherine, we don't care about all that you've done to make your body pretty. You're going to unzip your body. No bodies allowed in our ballroom." So Catherine, your body is unzipped, and what comes out of it is the Catherine ball of light. And you move on into, you're all by yourself now, and you move on into this grand ballroom, and for the moment, you feel all alone. But you also feel very free. You don't have the weight of your body. You have nothing that anybody who's going to come into this ballroom can even judge. They can't judge how tall you are, whether you're male or female, whether you're disabled or enabled. They can't judge your education or what job you have. Nobody can judge you because there's nothing to judge but this ball of light. What are they going to do? Say my light's bigger than your light? All lights are the same. All right. So there you are with this sense of freedom. And you explore the ballroom, you bounce off a wall or two, you're kind of having, even when you bounce off a wall, it doesn't hurt because there's no body to hurt. You just have a lot of fun bouncing around and a little joy coming on, a giggle or two and so on. And then here comes another member of the group. And that would be each of the audience members. You can just do this on your own. You get to the door. In fact, they're all arriving at the same time, Catherine. They all get to the door. But nobody's going to let them in as long as they're wearing this bodysuit. And there they are in their tuxedos and these very expensive gowns and hairdos that took 4 hours to do and all of that, cosmetics and all the stuff that goes into how good am I looking today, look at me kind of thing, as people tend to do if they're going to go into this formal ballroom. Everybody's got to unzip their bodies, leave it on the outside, and float on in. And so here they come, a whole bunch of lights. And if you think about it, Catherine, you can't judge any of them because they don't have any bodies. What can you judge about somebody else other than their body? You may say, well, I can judge their education or something like that, but that's a body thing. That's a thing a body did to get an education, so to speak, okay? All you can really do is just notice their light and notice how lovely it is. And then you notice you're no longer special. Because if you're special, you're somebody who gets judged. You're not special. And neither is any audience member. They're not special. They don't have to look at themselves and say, how do I look? And do I appear right? And all this judgment thing. It's all just sort of gone. And all there is are these floating little lights. And then you say to yourself, Catherine, well, I'll make my light bigger, which of course you can do. You can expand the whole ballroom. And if you do, you don't move other people out of it. You just move other people within it because they get in it and they expand theirs. And next thing you know, the walls of the ballroom start to deteriorate or they just crumble and this light goes everywhere. And the nice thing about it is there's just one big giggle. And if you've ever seen a video or if you've ever seen a young baby start to giggle and giggle and giggle uncontrollably, or a child giggle and start laughing, they are just completely unplugged in to the rest of the world. It is just one big joyous giggle. There is no judgment. There is no good, bad, or otherwise. There is no trauma. There is no anger. There's nothing to get traumatized or angry about because those things are all what happens with bodies. And so everybody here, including Catherine, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to enjoy this. Now, use your own imagination. You don't have to stay in the room. You can take some buddies with you and go someplace else if you want to. You can go spread it to hospitals. You can go, if you're a therapist, you can go visit all your clients, if you want to. Do whatever you want with it, but you are free, and so is everybody else outside this ballroom going to be free as well because you're going to free them, okay? Enjoy this. 2 minutes. See you in a bit. Okay, I hope you had some fun with that. Now we're going to go into a little bit, we're going to launch off of this into something else. Okay. Let's bring everybody back into the ballroom and your balls of light and so on. And pick out another ball of light. Doesn't matter whose it is, doesn't have a name. It's just another ball of light. And that ball of light looks at you through its, I'm going to say loving eyes. They're not physical eyes. They're whatever you want to call their eyes, but they are interfacing with you directly. And with that look in those so-called eyes, they're saying to you, I love you. And they mean it. To you, to them, you are the epitome of love. You are everything love is. You are like them, and they love you, and they want you to know that they love you. And that's where we will tend to have resistance receiving love. Just notice that now. Spend a few seconds. I'll give you a little time. Zero in on that. I love you. And notice whether you can really receive that or not, or if there's some barrier. Go ahead. Now, when that happened, check out your self-talk, where you're saying, well, yeah, but if you only knew that I did this, and this in the past, you wouldn't really say that. Okay. And then again, you're into judgment about yourself. Okay. But they don't see any of that, nor do they care. They see the essence of you, those eyes, and they love you. And the only job you have is simply to receive it. You don't owe them anything back. There's no sense of obligation here. You are being told in the most congruent sense, I love you. Let's try it again. Okay, so how did you do? Chances are you've got some resistance there, okay? And so we're going to do it one more time. This time we'll take 2 minutes. We're going to do a little bit differently. It's going to be you and your ball of light, feeling as free and as loving as you can, understanding there may be resistances to this, okay? And now the entire ballroom, including Catherine, is looking at you and they're saying, I love you. And they really mean it. Are you going to really let it in? And if you have resistance, and I'll repeat again, it's likely, call in unseen therapists, let her move within you or stand beside you or whatever is right for you to allow you to move these barriers aside and, at least for the moment, receive love. 2 minutes. Okay. Got a little more for you, but for the moment, I want to check in on how we're doing. Catherine,
Mhm.
I'm going to assume for the moment that you had some resistances to that, like everybody else would. Am I right? And if so, what were they?
I must have had them, but I didn't notice them.
Oh, okay. Well,
Just one time when I felt my body, then that was kind of a resistance because my attention shifted to my body again.
okay. And that was, we did several exercises here. That was one of the later ones or earlier ones or what?
The later one, the last one.
Okay. So you sort of reverted back into your body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I'm curious, how is your coldness at the moment?
I'm warmed up.
Well, okay, we didn't take a before on this, but if your coldness was a 10 before, by comparison, is it now a 5, a 2, an 8, or what?
A 2.
A 2. So you've warmed up considerably.
Completely, yes.
Okay. All right.
Almost completely. Yes.
All right. What can you think of anything else that occurred during all of this that you might like to share?
All my stress has gone. I love the exercise. And yeah, I must remember that one.
Well, that's why we recorded it.
Yes.
Okay.
Really nice exercise.
Okay. So I'm gonna shift for a second. Thank you, Catherine. I'm gonna shift for a second over to Gabrielle.
Thank you. I loved it. The zipping off of your body, it felt so free. And I had a very good time just bouncing around in the big ballroom and becoming one big light. And then in the last section where you suggested that we would visit others, I visited Catherine, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a few of the clients that I have, and I had so much fun. I mean, the giggle stayed with me. I was just giggling and a light ball and just visiting people and encouraging them to join the light. It was good fun. I feel really, well, Catherine feels warm, but I also feel very warm and very gentle and very, well, loving.
All right, Sherry, do you have any thoughts?
It was fantastic, Gary. I enjoyed it so much. Every time I kept going deeper and deeper. And at one point, when your beeper went off, I jerked a little bit, which told me that I was pretty much even contemplating leaving this physical, really enjoying myself. And it was only when I heard that beep that I kind of came back in. And I thought, wow, I better kind of center myself here, or I could just leave and that'll be the end of it.
Okay.
But when you kept saying, look into the light, there's all these lights, people with faces that are maybe people I'm not all that close to, or I may have some sort of issue with, they showed up and there was nothing negative between us at all. It was just one big loving group. And there was no resistance because I totally saw that there was no place where they stopped and I started. We were just one big mass of light. And so there was no resistance. It was just, I felt like it was all home week.
Okay, now here's the interesting part about this: the exercise was aimed ultimately at the ability to receive love. I mean,
Yeah.
Not academically receive it. I mean, really get into it, allow it, fill yourself with it, giggle off into the giggle sphere, wherever it is, the joy sphere, whatever. Okay.
And I was paying attention to that because as they were saying, I love you, I wanted to see how did I feel. And had you asked me to do that exercise without having brought us through that bubble and expanding our love, I probably would have felt the resistance, but having gone on this journey with you, with this ever expansion and seeing the light and unzipping ourselves, as they were saying, I love you, I didn't feel any resistance.
Okay.
Really,
All right.
it's to a wonderful place, Gary.
Okay. Well, I've got more exercises involved in mind here. We're going to keep going on this, but I do want to, and I'm going to call on one other person here who's not expecting it. So I'm sorry, because it's only because I see their little video on one side of my screen. So I'm going to call on Tony Michelli. I'm going to unmute you, Tony. Do you have a response, or am I putting something on you?
No, I don't mind responding, but as you know, because I had told you, I don't visualize very well, but I still had lots of fun. I had no resistance to accepting the love, and I can imagine. I can't visualize in a picture, but I can imagine. And the light of my own little sphere and the light of everyone else merged and expanded out of the ballroom to include the whole universe, and then to include the past, the present, and the future as well. And
Okay, go ahead.
everything felt really good. Yeah.
All right, good. Thank you, Tony. Now, I've got some more for us to do, okay? But the real test here, remember, I'm a great one for testing, is going to be whether or not, or how much of this you retain tomorrow, the next day, next week, next month. When somebody comes up and says, I love you, what's your response going to be, okay? Or do something that is of a loving nature. Are you going to go, oh, gee, you don't need to say that. Or get all embarrassed or something like that. Or are you really going to just receive it? Okay. Now, it's okay if you have all. It's okay if you fall back into this other. We're all learning here. It's a gradual process, and we're just getting into some good steps here. Okay. So, I do want to keep unloading the idea about doing this perfectly. Perfectly is whatever you do along your own path. So, but we've got something more to do here. Okay, so if you will, close your eyes and imagine yourself in the loving moment. Should be much easier to do now, but we'll give you a few moments to do that. Okay, now be in your body. Go ahead and be in your body. And in your imagination, put in front of you another body, somebody you don't like. You may actively despise them. Maybe you mistrust them. Maybe they cheated you or lied to you or stole your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever this ne'er-do-well did, okay? Put them in front of you. And we're just going to pick one for the moment. You may have dozens, okay, or hundreds, I don't know, but pick one, just one, okay? And there he or she is, okay? And dwell for a minute on all their sins, what they did to you, or what they did to the world, or how you can't stand them, and what it is about them that irritates you and makes your stomach, get tense or whatever happens, okay? Just spend a moment and list all their nasties, if you will. I'll give you a little bit of time. Oh, and by the way, don't tell me you don't have someone, okay? I don't buy it. Go ahead. Okay, I'm sure you've got a list, and I'm sure you've probably even had a little fun making your list. Okay. Now, if you would, with the eyes closed and in your imagination, as you see this person, unzip them in front of you and let the light come out and exist beside the body. Okay. You've got the light on one side and the body on the other. Okay. And you're looking at them both side by side. And notice something. The light, the essence, really doesn't have anything to do with the behaviors of the body. It's like the light somehow or other chose to have this body suit, this set of limitations. And as a result, in this set of limitations, it had to compete for resources. It has to eat, it has to drink, it has to have air and shelter and clothing and all the other stuff of this world. Needs a car, needs all kinds of stuff. And has to compete for that and compete for love. Needs to somehow be somebody special so they can be somebody. Okay, and somehow that's important to be. And that's what bodies do. And we notice that now. We have bodies do one thing, and they do these things all differently. They get into the body's own belief systems, and it reflects all of the conditioning and the beliefs and all the stuff that went on in their past, all their traumas and all their experiences and so on. And so they come up with their version of how to behave in this world. And they can justify things, even though from your set of beliefs and conditionings and so on, no, that doesn't work, because after all, you had to pay the price for their discretions. And of course, there's nobody on this world that wouldn't put you in the same place. They wouldn't think you did something bad to them, of course. Okay. But we want to notice the difference. The body is what does the behaviors. It's the body, this unfortunate suit that we have adopted, that the light adopted to surround it and hide within, that does these things. But the true essence is innocent of all of that. And so if you unzip your body and put your essence beside it, you will see your body does the same, not the exact same things that the other body does, but your body does what it needs to do to exist in this world, to compete for the resources, to get love, to be somebody, to advance yourself, just like the other person. You just have a different way. Your body has a different way of going about it. Now, the light is free of all of that. And so now, as you sit back and look at the person you don't like with the unzipped body and the light next to it, you can put the two of them together again. Put the light back in the body, zip it back up. And there they are. And see, I'm going to take a couple of minutes and see if you can't, even though you're looking at the body and are reminded of all the sins and transgressions that they did, if you can't see the light shining through and can't have some form of forgiveness that you would like to have for yourself. Okay? Interesting point. See you in 2 minutes. Now, and bring in unseen therapist in to help you with this realization. Okay. All right. Let me talk again, if I may, to Catherine. Where are you, Catherine? Speak to me.
I'm here.
You are here. I presume you found somebody you didn't like.
I did.
and is it true nuns actually have people they don't like?
It's really true. It's really true.
So what was your experience like in that?
It was very peaceful in the end, in the beginning also, but I mean, it was a very good idea to unzip them. And then I saw the light was exactly the same. So it was very easy to love them.
Exactly the same as what?
As mine.
Oh, as yours. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the interesting things. In our ballroom, there can be no judgment because there are no bodies. I mean, what are you going to judge? You know, my light is brighter than your light, or my light is bigger than your. I mean, that's immaterial because you can make your lights brighter, whatever you want. Okay. There is no other distinctions that go on. Okay. How is your warmth? Still at a 2?
Perfect. 0 cold.
Oh, 0. Okay. All right. Well, good. I would be curious to know how long that lasts, and maybe it's permanent. I don't know. Okay. But that's a barometer. The physical stuff is often a barometer of things. But the important thing to me, is that this kind of exercise gave you a physical result. Okay. You may not be walking out of your wheelchair at this point, but it gave you a physical result. And more of this and more of this and more of this at deeper levels for you than just the specific events.
Yes.
Would be useful. That's why we recorded it and so on. Okay. All right. I'm going to open this. I would love to hear your questions. I would love to hear your comments, your experiences, whatever, so on. So I see some raised hands here. I first see Jim Pasco. Go ahead, Jim.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
What I got clear on just now was, and I wanted to get your feedback on this, when we look at the inner light of the person, we behold them there. That's their true reality. That's where I'm trying to get.
Yes, and that's one of the main issues of what we're talking about, quantum physics, et cetera. So go ahead. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's 99%. That's all of them. Whereas most of them, at least I can only speak for myself, see the other side, the one that's when you're zipped up, and behold the isolated individual person. That's not them, but most of us think it, and I think it is. I look at you, I see you, but if I unzip you, you're pure light, and that's the true essence of you. So I realize how we're walking around in this delusive state.
Well, yeah, but it's a very, thank you, Jim, but it's a very easy illusion to buy into because it's there 24/7. It's convincing as can be. Okay.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's what I got from the exercise.
Yeah, yeah. And so if that's a way for you to see somebody else is to mentally unzip them, so to speak, and understand that their behaviors, how terrible you may think they are, is simply their way of trying to cope with having a body that has all these needs like your body has. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, Jim, hold on a second here. Whoops, where are we? All right, now, let me see. Susan.
Hello.
Hi.
Well, one thing during that last exercise, I just began freezing, and I'm still freezing, which I thought was quite interesting. So I've covered up.
I can see that.
I was fine before, and it's just like through my whole body. It's very interesting. The other thing is when we were doing the light exercise, I suddenly switched to this almost, I think of it as a quantum soup, and it was very quiet, and we were all there. It was just a being, which was quite interesting. It had switched from that light to that soupy thing. And then the other thing is that when we were first talking about receiving or giving love, I kind of question the term because I have had a spiritual experience. I think of it as just residing in love, which is separate from doing something, which would be giving or receiving. Just residing there.
Yes, and we're getting into semantics there, but yes. I think residing is a good word for those of us who can get there. Okay. Now, when I had my spiritual experience, I was clearly residing in it. I wasn't giving. I wasn't even conscious of giving love and receiving love. I just was love. I was in the arms of love. It just was. Good word. I was residing in it. But for those of us who haven't resided in it, a step is to give, understand our resistance to truly receiving, and so on. But I want to ask you about your getting cold. Okay. To me, and I'm guessing here for the moment, but I need to have you tell me otherwise. And by the way, if more want to raise your hands, please do. We've got more room. I see that as somehow some form of physical evidence that you are resisting for the moment. Love. Something happened physically. You got cold. There was some kind of a reaction. Somebody else might get a headache. Somebody else might get stomach upset. A comment on that, could you?
I believe I am an empath also, and I don't know if it has something to do with that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure, but I am open to the fact that I always could be resistant to it.
Well, the odds are you are at some level. And oftentimes we are at levels we're not even remotely aware of until we start doing this kind of exercise. And then we see glimmers, then we do it more and more, and the next thing a glimmer is more of a light, and so on it goes. So, okay, anything else, Susan?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me call on Gabrielle again for any comments she may have.
Well, I must say that I'm pleasantly surprised that Catherine is feeling so warm, because in all the time that we've worked together, and we started off with the tapping form, obviously, but we have been doing optimal EFT for almost 3 years now, and we have come across Catherine becoming a little less cold, so to speak, but this is a rather remarkable result. I haven't noticed this much warmth in her body yet, so this is the first time, so I'm very happy.
All right. Well, I would imagine Catherine's a little happy too. So, Catherine, I am going to eventually ask you to see if you have any closing comments. So, if you're nervous, get over it and get together some comments. I see some more hands raised here. So, Rena McGill, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can hear me.
Oh, sure.
All right, thank you. So this is a question for you. I'm sitting here doing the process with you, and from my experience, it was very much like losing contact with any physical reality and being somehow or other in some other reality, but I can't really tell you what it was. It's just, I'm wondering, am I crazy? Maybe?
Probably.
Probably. Confirmation.
Well, wait. Okay, but I'll respond in a moment. But let me get to the crazy for a moment, okay? Let's go back to quantum physics, okay? It says separation is impossible. Anybody who's had a spiritual experience like mine in the past would recognize that separation is impossible. There is only this oneness. You flip out of this separate thing into this oneness thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The thing about the oneness thing is that is far more real once you're there than this separate experience, even though the separate experience seems very real. So the question is, if we are plugged into this separate experience and it isn't real, it is an illusion, which our most pristine science is telling us. Who's crazy? We all are.
Mm-hmm.
We are choosing what is actually an impossible state, separation. Okay. Very interesting. Okay. Now, this other state you went into, was it a good state, a bad state, a neutral state? What was it?
It would be more neutral, but probably it wasn't a bad state. It didn't cause me any uncomfortableness. It was just, I've been there a lot, and it's, there's no time, there's no space, and it's like when we did the first experiment, it was like, it just lasted for what I thought was a very, very long time. But based on what you normally do, it probably was only a minute or two. It's just, there was no time.
Okay. So thank you for that. And the fact that there seems to be no time in this state, to me at least, means you have flipped into some version of this other state. You said you've done it before in the past. There is no time in there. Now you consider it more neutral. To me, it was glorious. Okay, it wasn't neutral, it was glorious. But we all have different experiences about it. But the mere fact that there is no time in it, and you don't even know how long you were there, is indicative of that. And to me, that's a first-class step. That's you. When you get there, you open that door. Now, what you might want to do, Rena, and I'd be curious if you try this, I'd want to see what happens, is you might spend some time on your own. Maybe you want to come back and look at the recording of this webinar and then get back in that state again. But when you're there, invite the unseen therapist to see if she can't expand that into a more glorious version of it.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, that would be, and I'd be curious what happens if indeed you're able to do that.
All right. I'll let you know.
All right. All right. Thanks, Rena.
Thank you.
Now, Maud,
Yeah.
you're there?
Have you unmuted me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You asked us to choose someone who annoys us, and I did.
Okay.
And it was a very good exercise because when I unzipped him and the light came out and I unzipped myself, we could our two lights could merge.
Okay.
And when we came back in our bodies, I could see the light in him.
Okay. And see, if we do that lots.
Yeah, and I would like to do it every time I get irritated
Yes.
with someone.
And that's a form of conditioning ourselves
Yeah.
to see what's really there, which is the light.
Yes.
And not this other illusion that we are so stuck in. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very good exercise, and we could do it whenever this irritation comes up.
And let me suggest something that where people will have some difficulty with this, and it's very human nature, and that is, we can all sit here and say, yes, good idea. Every time I'm annoyed with somebody, I'm going to go do this, and so I can condition myself and climb this stairway to miracles that we keep talking about. Okay. What is likely to happen, and I just want you to be aware of it. It's not good or it's not bad. You didn't fail or anything else. Is when that time arises, you may choose either to forget to do it, or even if you remember, you may prefer to beat them up in your own mind about, oh, that so-and-so, which is a form of us projecting out our own unrest on somebody else. Okay, this is all part of the dynamics that go on. But the thing is we just want to catch ourselves at it. We're beginners here, okay? And if you can really do it, every time you're irritated with somebody, do that. after a while, your irritations with people just will be less and less and less. The decisions you make and the things that happen in your life are more peaceful, more peaceful. Your physical ailments start to fade down. Okay. So, anything more, Maud?
No, that's it.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Sherry, any final words, and then we'll hear from Catherine.
Well, I just wanted to comment about Serena's comment when she said, in doing this, I felt like I was losing contact with the physical reality, and she was questioning, what reality is this? Am I crazy? And I just wanted to point out that is such a wonderful place to be, because that, I don't know who I am or where I am, that is a terrific entry point for spiritual transformation.
Yeah.
You just give up who you think you are and what you're here to do, and you just say, I don't know. Who am I? Where am I? That's a great place for spirit to come in and to help transform.
That also brings out one of our other larger goals here, and that is we get to the point where we start to see more and more and more the power of the unseen therapist, which is really our own self. It's the light within. Okay, we get to see more and more and more of that, and we get to trust it more and more to the point where we. Just a minute. To the point where we start asking unseen therapists not just what to do in this particular circumstance, but we start asking for everything we do. Where should I go today? Who should I see? What should I say now? This kind of thing, okay? Now that's advanced. It's advanced, no doubt about it. But it's a goal. It's several steps, many steps up this stairway to miracles. But yes, important. Anything more, Sherry?
No.
Okay, thanks. All right, Catherine, we'd love to hear from you. Big hug to you first. Thank you.
Thank you. Big hug to you too. So the thing I want to remember from this webinar is that the light is an amazing power, and that I have it inside of me just as anybody else has.
Indeed.
So it's very important to be aware of that as much as I can.
All right. And you will let me know about your warmth.
I will.
And how long it lasts, maybe permanently or whatever. Okay.
I will.
Okay. All right, everybody. We will have another webinar, I think, in 2 weeks. But I will let you know in a newsletter. In the meantime, a big kiss to everybody. A big hug. Oh, I was going to do what did I call that?
A grounding?
A grounding, but I don't think I need to do it in today, because the whole thing was a grounding day. Would you agree with that, Sherry?
Sure. It's a wonderful space. I'd like to hold on to it as long as I can.
Okay. All right. We'll skip the grounding, because I think this basically was a grounding webinar. So, all right. We will see you guys next time.